Hello there, I'm Jesus Pruneta, and this is my excerpt video presentation for English 3337. The story I chose is Ghetto is Not an Adjective by Dominic Garib. The main character misses the bus because his parents' car broke down, which he considers his own, while on the way to a rich kid's party. On his way, he sits in the back of the bus with some other people that he would describe as his own, that being Mexican. However, he doesn't necessarily consider them that because some of them are speaking broken Spanglish, while others are in a sense just acting ghettoish. However, as these boys are arguing, he then comes across a character who, out of nowhere, jumps up and begins making a speech, a bit argumentative with the boys when he calls them ghetto, or rather when they call each other ghetto, and he says, "We're all ghetto." The story progresses with the character describing how people who are from the ghetto say it's a bad thing, and people who aren't from the ghetto say it's a bad thing. However, it doesn't tell the story because the ghetto is the home for many of these people. Take, for example, the girls who he's referred to as keeping captive listen to him while they're on the bus as he gives his speech. So, for my assignment, I decided to go upon these 4 assignments for the story. One is our bell ringer. Ghetto is not an adjective, bell ringer. I'd like you to write a paragraph about a time when you either followed the crowd or felt like someone was influencing you in a negative way. As teachers, we're always going to have our students coming in, and it's important to transition from the previous class to our class. So this bell ringer serves the purpose initially for seeing how the students feel about being influenced, or if they were ever influenced. That way I'm able to gauge, do they have any previous experience with this that will allow them to relate to the story. Now, onto the reading we have here. It is going to compose entirely of the book itself, but I will put an emphasis on the story of Ghetto is Not an Adjective by Dominic Garib. I specifically want them to read the stories before and after, just to kind of gauge, the Hispanicness of our culture down here. I find it very interesting, the stories that I read there in the class, and I feel like many of those stories could really touch and culminate within the students whenever they're reading them in class. The next assignment I'll have is the essay. Ghetto is not an adjective essay. Reflect on a time when you or someone you know felt like your identity or true self was being ignored or shunned. After a class reading, Ghetto is not an adjective, the characters in there showcased the exchange where characters were witness to a speech by someone who made some think deeply and others shrug off. Therefore, write about how you as a person have been in a situation where you felt like you couldn't be yourself, and how you work towards being someone who's proud of themselves. Lastly, I have the poster. While there's no characters necessarily, there is characters, but rather there's no specific characters. It mostly takes place between the character culminating what he's learned and what he's hearing, and also the other bystanders and the Che Guevara, who the man looks like because of his hair, all speaking together. Well, not necessarily together, but rather Che Guevara speaking to the crowd, and the crowd either listening silently, making small comments, or at the end calling him loco. In this case, I want my students to reflect on themselves of any situations where they had to either hide themselves or not be who they are. And in this poster, I want them to write something that they've never been able to express about themselves, or something that others don't know because they never get to express that. As a whole, this is a story that felt very personal to me because, I grew up in Brownsville, and whenever I tell anybody else from the Valley or in Texas, really, it's sometimes considered the ghetto because it's by the border and because of our large Hispanic population, but I take pride in where we are. I know that our motto is by the border, by the sea, because, we're right close to South Padre Island, and we're by the border, and I find Brownsville to be a very heartwarming place in my heart. And in a sense, I kind of want my students as well to feel like Brownsville's our home. Even though some may consider it ghetto, depending on where you live, even if we're not all from the same part of Brownsville, it's still our home, and we should take pride in that. And that is my video excerpt for English 3337. Jesus Pruneta.